Welcome back, everyone. LD, are you still by the door? Can you go ahead and open it? Just to let a little bit of outside world. Sit up at your leisure. We're going to go through some of the thinking behind the individual sounds and the thinking that went to the research. We'll be projecting on that screen over there. So there's a way to shuffle around a little bit. So you can see it yourself and then when I originally made this event, I thought maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 people would show up. And if some folks want to come in and sit in this region too for the research part, that's just fine. You see I'm by the wall here, you can sit here, be mindful of the wires. But we'll go through some of the thinking behind this. Welcome everyone, welcome. So what we'll do is we'll share this space briefly while we go through the research, and then the first folks who are here for the 7 o'clock will, if you want to head out, you're welcome to stay for both if you want. The next one will be more intense. It'll be louder, distortion, using words to scare away people.
But more interesting.
And more interesting. Yeah, we'll have some readings from the Jing, maybe through heavy effects. It'll be very interesting. If you folks, feel free to come into this empty space right here if you like for this research part. Just be careful, they did kind of gap down the wires. So, yeah, perfect. Come on in. You can also sit over here. Anyone else want to come in? We've got a little bit of space here that you can sit. You're welcome to sit on the yoga mat with me. I'm happy to have you as girlfriends. Yeah, welcome. Please. Yeah, anyone in here. Welcome. Nice to meet you. And then we'll be focused on the screen over there. I taught a bit last year, so I think I developed a bit of a skill to read if I'm getting boring. If I'm not reading the room correctly, just start leaving, and then I'll figure it out. And again, the exits are there, and there. You're like, I'm not here for the school stuff. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Cece. How about you mentioned it?
Yeah. So how's everybody experience just now?
Pleasant.
Pleasant? Thank you. Did you draw anything fun?
I wrote a poem.
Awesome.
Would you like to read it? Would you like to share?
Right.
I can read it. I'm just like laying down cricket patch. Just like that. Ever driving your car to nowhere, parking by the new grown corn, talking about the cars, the trails, the mist, the sunrise, as the seventh seal was torn. Paging through the songs of songs like it was candy. Breathing in the country air. Thinking through this love thinking that this love has been and always will be. So fucking blessed, is it fair? I love you like the sun.
Oh, thank you.
I'm yours and you are one. So I'm massively styled for this rock and roll.
Beautiful.
That's sweet.
Good job. Thank you. Yeah, so feel free to draw or sketch or write down anything that came up. That's what the pen and paper is for. And if you want to come up to us afterwards and share what happened, feel free to do that as well. All right, so I'm gonna aim high first, just to mess up your expectations, and then we'll actually get through it much quicker. There's 117 slides. No one's gotten out of their chairs. And I'm gonna go through them very quickly. Yeah, so that fast. So really what I wanna do is have you hear that what I wanted to do with this project is not recreate what other cultures have done. I didn't want to listen to different shamanistic or religious rituals and be like, that's cool, and then remake it. What I wanted to do is look at what is the energy underneath the spiritual experience or the religious experience, and how does that come up as sound. And so a lot of the inspiration came from, well, all the different cultures that I studied, but the first step, there's a series of steps that I identified of how sound, whether it was our experimental sound experience here, or a drumming circle, or a shamanistic ritual with people chanting, with some sort of percussion, or people singing in a church, a gospel. So I wanted to look at that. How does that emerge? What does it do? And then how does it dissolve? And so the first step is silence. And then we've got field of consciousness, I'll go through all these. Emergence of form, reverberations of form as a vehicle for transformation, and then the dissolution of the form. We're already on like slide 10, see? So I've been blazing through this. So first thing is silence. And what I was looking at is form comes from silence. So before there's form, there's silence. So it's this, you have to start with nothing before you have something. And what is that process like? So when we think of silence, it's not actually absolute stillness. Quantum physics has shown us that on a subatomic level. There's always movement. We just can't necessarily perceive it, or we tune it out because we get used to it. And so, for example, what feels silent to a New Yorker might seem noisy to someone in rural Iowa. You know, there's just different, there's different ideas of what is my baseline, what I consider silent. And if we think about this room right now, I'll be quiet for about 10 seconds. What do you hear? Yeah. But if no one's talking and music isn't playing, you would be like, oh, the room's silent. I mean, there's a band upstairs, but if they weren't playing, we'd still hear like the hum of the HVAC and some of these machines and the speakers. And this is, you know, this building was built in 1891, so it's just got creaks and all sorts of sounds that happen. And so silence. Do we need to go live on? And...
It's fine.
Okay. No light. And so silence, if there's a beat and then silence and a beat and then silence, that's what creates the beat. Otherwise it would just be, that's a drone, but if it's boom, 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 that beat is only possible because there's silence afterwards. So you have this form and then it dissolves. And so I wanted to look at how to sonify silence. And so earlier this evening, I've got this recorder. I recorded the sound of this room, and then so what I did, I'm amplifying the signal at the very low end, just to the point where you can't hear bass anymore. And so this sound that you're hearing is this room with that really low end boosted. And so it's just these weird rumbles and grumbles. And that's, normally we can't perceive it, so I boosted it so you could hear, this is what silence sounds like in this room. And then this one's I won't turn up too loud, but it's at the high end. And so it's this really high pitched, that's in the room as well. And I boosted it so we could hear it more easily. Can people hear that? Yeah, it's awful to me. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, it's like tinnitus or tinnitus. So that's my way of sonifying silence. So that was an experiment in looking at how silence actually has form. So the next step is field of consciousness, and this comes from Vedic and TM. It's the idea that all forms come from this creative energy that doesn't have form. It could be a god, it could be a universal energy, it could be the Tao, it could be chi, it could be prana, but it's this field of energy that hasn't taken form yet. And temporary forms manifest from this pure source. So we're born of it, and then we die, or perhaps we return to it. In Vedic tradition, they describe it as a unified field of energy, kind of the ocean of consciousness. And it's the source of all unmanifested thoughts, forms, and phenomena. It's pure potential before differentiation. So before I'm born, I could be anyone. But once I'm born, I start to form and solidify. And I sonified that as this sound. So it's just a drone. It doesn't change. It's unwavering. It's just this airy, bassy tone. That was my sonification of this field of consciousness. So it doesn't have form, it's just drone, it's just this ongoing thing. And then there's a sub in it too, which will make this bass over here. Do you guys feel that? Yeah. So it's this like fluttery, it's a deep bass underneath of that. But it's consistent. You know, it's not a beat, it doesn't have notes, it's all just a single tone. So that's how I sonified the field of consciousness. Next is, in this field of consciousness, there's this idea in Vedic culture that consciousness starts to reverberate off of itself. And so if we have a tone, I start creating these reverb feedback loops that create these washes. And so it slowly starts to move. So this is, imagine a flat ocean that isn't moving, and it just starts to ripple a little bit. That's this step. Forms haven't taken place yet, but things are starting to move, starting to swell and let go, and swell and let go, and it's starting to get closer to some sort of form. But it's also very still close to this like drone, this flat drone. And then the next step is I sonified. There you go. So I have these ocean waves, and so they aren't as long as the reverbs, they're shorter, so imagine a wave coming up, cresting, and then falling back into the water. So it takes form for a few seconds, and then it dissolves back in. So it rises, it's something, and then it dissolves. So the form is starting to get shorter and more articulate. So it's coming up and it's dissolving, it's coming up and it's dissolving. So that's the next step. And this follows an idea in Hindu culture and Vedic culture as well, of this idea of all forms have a birth, they sustain for a while, and then they release back into the forms are a little loud. That all forms have this arc of an emergence, there's a period of existence, and then it releases back into that formless energy. And in terms of electronic music, that's similar to an envelope on a synthesizer where there's this attack, a sustain, and a release. And then in Vedic culture, it's creation, preservation, destruction. And so all forms in the physical world have this. We're born, we live for a period of time, and we die. All forms, even this equipment here, it was made of materials, it's built into a synthesizer or a mixer or a cable or this building, and at some point this building won't be here anymore. It'll dissolve back into dust. And then form is when something comes from this field, so it's got the reverberations, it's got the waves, and then it finally takes hold, and it's something for a period of time. And this emergent energy begins to take hold, it sustains form for longer and longer. And it's long enough to coalesce, to hold shape, to be perceived. And what I was doing for this was the heartbeat sound. So it's a clear beat, there's a kick, and then there's a space, it's this identifiable form. And for the duration of our performance, you have this anchor, and that's form. That's how I sonify form. And then once you have all of these things, so if it's a shamanistic ritual with a drum circle or people chanting or singing in a gospel, what's the point? You've created this vehicle for people to listen to, and it changes them, and it becomes this experience where you get transformed. So maybe you're listening to a hymn or a gospel, and you get inspired by it. It changes you. So while you're listening to it, you stop worrying about the bills you have to pay, or your kid not doing well in school, or whatever the worry is. You have this experience of your consciousness or your perception being transformed by the sound. And that idea is, again, so it comes from nothing, it becomes a form, and that form has a purpose, and that is a vehicle for you to listen to and have some sort of transformation. I wanted to show this one piece. So this is a spectrogram, so it's a visualization of a song, and it's these Chinese Buddhist nuns. And normally, if I put a pop song in here, something from Taylor Swift, it wouldn't have this form. It would just look like, kind of splashes of the orange. But this ends up looking like a tapestry. And so there's this inherent intelligence, this beautiful design that's in these chants. And so they've got these bells, which are those bright lights at the bottom. They've got chanting, they've got rhythm, and they've created this form